And we are about to read chapter 12 of book number 1, A Healing in Jesus' Name. Here we go. Oh, and don't forget to like the video and make a comment under it, and also subscribe to my channel if you want to. All right. Tommy leaned against the wall and smiled as he patiently waited for James to finish ranting and raving. The two men to whom James was directing his comments cowered and flinched with each wave of bellowing profanity. Why can I not get correct information? She's nothing to worry about. She's old. She's not in very good shape. He cursed God. She's just picked up the top sponsors, so I'm thinking she must have something going for her. The Chinese looked up. Yeah, she's got Kino as an instructor. James struck out. The young man staggered to his feet. Sorry, Mr. Crane. I only meant that... Tommy interrupted. We know what you meant. There's no need to remind anyone of Kino's influence. Tommy patted his friend on the shoulder. I don't pay any attention to my brother's temper. At Tommy's words, both the young Chinese man and his companion turned fearful eyes toward James. But Tommy only smiled. As I was saying, pay no attention to James' temper tantrum, because it will be over as soon as I tell him the other little piece of information. He paused dramatically. What information? James asked impatiently. Oh, something you'll find amusing. Tell me, James ordered. Tommy smiled. Our friend has not only found himself sponsors for his student, he's finally found himself a new love. James looked into Tommy's cold blue eyes. A new love? What are you saying? I'm saying, dear brother, that Kino has committed the unpardonable sin. He's fallen in love with his student, with the student, the Mart student. He has it bad. He lives and breathes for her. His world revolves completely around her. Tommy watched the information plant itself in James's brain. A wicked, evil grin spread across his older brother's face. Kino is doing Shelley Adams? James asked, moving slowly to his desk. Tommy shrugged. Well, I don't know about all that. He's some paragon of virtue, but I don't have to tell you that. Wouldn't it be fun, though, to get to her? To take her before Kino does? James tapped a finger on the edge of the polished wood, deep in thought. A chuckle began in his stomach and worked its way up his throat and burst forth. His eyes met Tommy's, and for a brief moment they reveled in the possibilities of the new twist. James recovered quickly, though, and turned toward the two men, who stood slightly confused, waiting for their next orders. I want to know everything. Schedules, addresses, family, what she has for breakfast, where she buys her groceries, her dog's name, everything. Is that understood? She don't have a dog, the man offered. Tommy rolled his eyes. Take Dirk and Louise and don't waste my time. Now, get out of here. When they were alone, the brothers smiled quietly at each other, because Eric Kino was making it almost too easy. New scene. Shelley awoke in her own bed to strange smells and the sound of male voices. Pulling on a pair of blue jean shorts and a t-shirt, she made her way downstairs. The aroma of cooking food was alternating between pleasant and nauseating. She could barely remember the flight home and began to wonder if Florida had merely been a dream. At the entrance to the kitchen, she came to a halt. Everyone had apparently made themselves at home. Eric was at the sink, the water running. Jason was cooking something on the stove. Justin sat at the table reading something on his phone, and Ricky leaned back in his chair, happily peeling a banana. They chatted softly amongst themselves, yet to Shelley their voices boomed in her head. Justin looked up first. Oh, hi, sleepyhead, he said with a smile. Eric shut off the water and turned, his smile brightening at the sight of her. She crossed to him and he hugged her fiercely. How are you feeling? Not great. Here, I was just about to bring this up to you. It will help. He shoved a mug of strong tea at her. She sipped it gingerly and found a seat on the countertop. Ricky came to her. I realize that you probably don't remember too much about last night, but I want you to know that you were amazing. You won those sponsors over like a pro, and we were all terribly impressed. He took her hand and kissed it. "Thank you, Ricky," she said sweetly as she touched his face and then pushed her cup of tea into his hands. "And now, I think I have to throw up." She jumped off the counter and dashed up the stairs. She came back a few minutes later, feeling a little better, but looking a little worse for wear. She went to the cabinet, pulled out a bottle of ibuprofen, and poured 4 of them into her hand. Peering over Jason's shoulder, she tried to see what he was stirring around in the pan. Eric took her hand, removed the pills she was about to swallow, and replaced them with the tea. She frowned at him, and he smiled. "I promise it will work wonders if you drink it." "If you say so, Master Kino," she answered smartly. He smiled. "I have some calls I really need to make. Do you mind if I go up to your room for some privacy?" "Oh, no, not at all." Eric took his phone from his pocket and headed up the short flight of stairs. Justin began telling Shelley about her adventures the previous night and had her laughing despite her pounding head. "Shelley?" Everyone looked up at Eric as he re-entered the room, mostly because of the controlled tone of his voice. "What is this?" he asked, though it was obvious that he already knew the answer. He held a piece of mail in his hand. She approached him slowly, squinting at the paper he held up. "Oh, that," she said flippantly. It's no big deal. They just want me to come back in and redo my pap smear. I've been meaning to make an appointment and go back in, but it's such a hassle, and I sort of forgot. What with getting ready for Daytona and all. Besides, we really haven't had much time." "You forgot?" he asked incredulously. "How could you forget? And don't give me the time excuse. We would have made time. Do you realize what this says?" "Yes, I realize exactly what it says," she snipped at him. "It says that the pap smear was unclear and to come back in for another test. That doesn't mean anything. More than likely, some lab technician dropped the slide." He shook his head at her. "Or did you think that it could mean there's an actual problem?" "Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot." She nodded toward the others in the room. This is kind of personal, Eric." "You're right, and I'm sorry," he murmured as he walked back upstairs. She stood alone, looking so pitiful that Justin felt the need to comfort her, so he went to her and put his arm around her. Anne died of uterine cancer." Shelley looked up into Justin's dark eyes and then over at Ricky, who nodded. She found Eric in her room, sitting on her bed on his phone, and she sat down next to him. Justin told me about Anne. I'm sorry, Eric." He patted her arm. "Shh." "I'm sorry I forgot," she whispered. Eric put his hand over the phone. "Shh, I can't hear." And then, "Yes, that will be fine. Thanks." He ended the call, put his arm around her shoulders, tilted her face up, and placed a kiss on her forehead. "So you're not angry anymore?" Shelley asked. Without speaking a word, he kissed her. Shelley sighed. "Well, this is nice. We could just stay here and talk all day like we did in Daytona." "No, actually, we can't, though I would love that." "Why not?" she purred. "Well, because you have a doctor's appointment in 30 minutes. Shelley's eyes opened wide. "What? You made an appointment for me?" She frowned. "I can't believe you did that. Eric, I was just in the hospital a little over 24 hours ago. Can't this wait?" "I know you hate going to the doctor," he said, "but sometimes we have to do things we don't like, and it has to be done. Wouldn't you like to just get it over with?" She shrugged and then ran her hand over his chest. "Oh, we could be late," she offered provocatively. Eric groaned and stilled her hand. "It would be rude, because they did me a favor by working you." His words were stopped by her kiss. "You're making me crazy," he said breathlessly. "That was my intention." "Well, then you succeeded. Shelley, please don't think that I don't want to stay here with you, but we really need to get this done. If you'll get ready, I'll take you there myself." He stood, but Shelley laid back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. Eric turned to her. "So, is there anything else you need to tell me about your health? Something else maybe you forgot?" She ignored his sarcasm and sincerely thought a moment. "Nothing comes to mind." "Good, because I don't want any more surprises." They left the others at Shelley's home, which didn't bother her a bit. It was when they returned a few hours later that she was bothered. She walked in the door, feeling irritable, so the shoes and socks and luggage all over the living room seemed to jump out at her. Normally, something like that would never have bothered her. As a matter of fact, she hated women who made a big deal about a house being spotlessly clean at all times. But today was different. She walked into the kitchen to find another mess, and the same for the bathroom, and she looked out the bathroom window. Ricky had found the trampoline in her backyard and appeared to be sleeping on it. Eric was in the hall as she came out of the bathroom. Now, that's a sour face. What's wrong? Nothing, she snapped. Just nothing. Where are your little friends, Justin and Jason? Eric shook his head. I haven't seen them, but they're around here somewhere because their luggage is in the because their luggage is in the living room. But Shelley found them, though, one asleep in her son's room and one asleep on her bed. She turned and stomped down the stairs and out to the living room, picking things up with a vengeance. Eric grabbed her around the waist. What's wrong? Look at this place. It looks like a hurricane hit. Well, it's a lot of people in a small space. I'll help you clean things up, but I don't think that's what's actually bothering you. Talk to me. She turned on him. You think you know everything. You men are all alike. You make a mess and expect a woman to clean up for you. You push us around. You take us for granted. And you know we can't do anything about it because you're bigger and stronger. We always have to submit to you. Always. And I'm sick of it. It doesn't really matter how skilled I become because there's always going to be some man better that can force me to do whatever he wants. Jason and Justin sat up listening, which wasn't very hard to do since Shelley was shouting at the top of her lungs. Eric walked away from her a few steps and then turned to face her. I realize that what I'm about to say is probably going to make you madder than you already are. But what you just said is absurd and irrational. Number one, not all men are alike. Number two, Ricky and I have been cleaning up after ourselves all our lives, even before Anne passed away, and we will continue to do so. Number three, I have never pushed you around or taken advantage of my strength, except as your teacher, which I would do with any of my students, male or female. And number four, yes, you are absolutely right about one thing. There is always going to be someone bigger, stronger, and more skilled than you. Always. So get used to the idea. He sighed and softened. But Shelley, I would never force you to do something you don't want to do, and I certainly wouldn't allow anyone else to. She came right back. Well, you just forced me to go to the doctor today. Finally, you admit what this is all about. Shelley, sweetheart, that was out of love and concern for you. You could have refused, but you didn't because common sense told you to take care of business. She turned away. I know, she said quietly. Eric put his arms around her. Why does going to the doctor upset you so much? He asked her gently. He knew the answer, but thought having her say it would help. She turned to face him, her lips trembling. It makes me feel violated. It's having to take your clothes off and submit yourself to a stranger. I know it sounds stupid. Her voice trailed off. Well, feelings are never stupid. They're just feelings. Now, I know you don't like to talk about what happened to you, but have you considered that the rape has something to do with how you feel about doctors? Of course I have, she yelled. Then she stopped, took a deep breath, and calmed herself and began again. Of course I have. But knowing that doesn't get rid of the feeling. I realize they're not connected, but one reminds me of the other. She lowered her head. I'm sorry for being so mean and taking it out on you. Eric pulled her close. Well, I can take it. Don't worry, sweetie. We're going to work through all these feelings that cause you so much anxiety. Justin and Jason came down the stairs. Oh, wow, you guys are back already? Jason asked, politely pretending that they hadn't heard the conversation. My dog is snoring. Hope you can't hear it. Politely pretending that they hadn't heard the conversation. We were going to clean everything up before you got home, but we were so tired from last night. We sort of fell asleep, Justin offered. Shelley smiled at the fear on their faces. And she turned to Eric. You haven't been able to spend much time with your friends. Why don't you guys all go out for the evening and give me some alone time? He didn't even question her. They quickly gathered their belongings, woke Ricky from the trampoline, and left, each one kissing her cheek as they walked out the door. Ricky turned to her at the door. Jason said you're mad at us. He got down on his knees and grabbed her legs. Please, don't be mad at me, Shelley. She laughed. Even if I was, it wouldn't be hard to stay mad for very long because you're so cute. She's talking about me, Jason said. Is not, Ricky argued. Is too. Is not. Goodbye, Shelley waved, cutting them off. Eric rubbed a hand down her arm. I'll be back tonight. I'll be waiting, she promised. Lowering his head, he kissed her slowly. Any time now, Ricky called. New scene. Birds singing cheerfully at sunrise didn't quite match Shelley's mood. When she woke and realized that she'd slept through the night, disappointment washed over her. Why hadn't Eric come back to see her like he'd said he would? At that very moment, someone knocked on her front door and she rushed to answer it. Good morning, Shelley. Are you feeling better? Well, physically I feel better. Emotionally, I feel sad. Why are you sad? Because I was looking forward to you coming back last night. I did come back. And you didn't wake me? Well, it was so late. The house was dark. I decided to let you sleep. Is this a relationship buster? She smiled at the silly question. Oh no, not this time. You get 3 strikes before you're out, she teased. Phew, I'm glad to hear that. He clapped his hands together. Well, it's time to get down to business. We have to get moving. First things first, she said as she went on her toes and kissed him. He smelled good, freshly showered. She wanted to stay home and cuddle with him all day. She shook her head. What was she thinking? She wanted to win the mart. As Eric had said, they need to keep their priorities straight. She realized she felt different inside her mind. Small things like she kissed him instead of waiting for him to kiss her. That was not like her at all. Apparently, she'd found some kind of confidence during her time down in Daytona, and she suddenly realized that she felt much more powerful than she did before the tournament. She smiled at Eric. Yep, her confidence level had definitely jumped since the trip to Daytona. Maybe it was the tournament experience. Maybe it was that little altercation on the beach. Or maybe it was their confessed love. This morning, she felt downright brazen. She would keep her priorities straight. She would work hard. She was definitely looking forward to the coming days, both for the training and for the time she would be spending with her new boyfriend. Though Eric was not a boy in any way, she thought he was a man, a good man. This coming year is gonna be awesome. Strict training resumed and life went back to normal as it could be for a future Mart competitor. The first week back from Daytona turned into a disaster. Staying up late, laughing and playing when they should be hard at work, talking and kissing and ultimately resisting the urge to take things further, falling off the routine over and over, Eric finally made a drastic decision. And Shelley was furious when he informed her of the new plan. He explained that the routine of each day had to be completely consistent, and that consistency meant no distractions, and unfortunately, he was a major distraction. Therefore, he said, whatever relationship we share will be shared only on Sundays. I will not be accompanying you home and having dinners with you.
This is a reminder. Walk s'mores. This is a reminder. Walk s'mores.
I apologize. I forgot to turn that off. Let's see. Whatever relationship we share will be shared only on Sundays. I will not be accompanying you home and having dinners with you and spending evenings with you Monday through Saturday. During those days, I'll act only as your teacher. Also, when we are out of town at competitions, we will completely maintain our student-teacher status. You have to believe me, it's for the best. Her anger came mostly from him not bothering to discuss the decision with her. And he told her there was no room for discussion. He made the decision as a Mart instructor, not as the man who loved her. She didn't speak to him for days, during which time he explained how he had to make the separation between those 2 different roles, or she would end up losing in the first rounds of the Mart. And then he told her that she was going to have to make the same distinction. And she finally came to terms with it, but was disgusted with herself for missing Eric so much. Like some schoolgirl, she found herself looking forward to each morning with great anticipation just to be near him, and she longed for Sundays when they were able to spend time together. He began teaching her about God, about Jesus, and his great love. They would also cuddle and kiss and talk about their feelings. She yearned for him, and all those yearnings made her angry with herself for needing him so much. She was disgusted with herself for the weakness. She didn't want to need him, yet she gave in to that need every Sunday. Yep, Sundays were the best, though they weren't intimate physically. Mentally and emotionally, they grew closer and closer. They developed a trust and a friendship that was deep and abiding. They talked, sometimes about nothing important, sometimes about politics or books, about world hunger or something as simple as cooking or favorite colors. Eric talked to her about the amazing spiritual experience he had as a child, which brought about his deep faith in God and his son, Jesus. Shelley had attended church with her family when she was young, though she couldn't really remember much of anything about it. Her parents hadn't really taught her anything. They were too busy trying to make a living. So listening to Eric tell his miraculous story and bearing his testimony to her, the tiny mustard seed within her began to grow. Shelley took great pleasure in watching Eric's face as he spoke. There was so much light in his eyes, and she reveled in his love. And one Sunday, as summer neared its end and the time for Shelley's children to come home approached, Shelley was busy doing the lunch dishes when her phone rang. And since Shelley's hands were wet, Eric took it upon himself to answer it for her. Shelley's phone, he answered jovially, "Yes, she's right here. Give her a second to dry her hands." This is Eric Kino." "Oh, yes, of course. I'm anxious to meet you, too." "Sure. That would be fine." "Yes, I'll be here. Here she is. One moment." He placed his hand over the receiver. "It's Robert." Grimacing, Shelley took the phone. Eric watched her facial expressions as she spoke to her ex-husband. When the conversation ended, she sat down at the table and stared up at the ceiling, something she did whenever she had problems on her mind. Eric smiled at her. She was so easy to read. So, what did Eric say? What did Robert say? Eric asked her. "You first." "Okay, well, he said he'd like to meet me next Sunday when he brings the kids home." Shelley began to chew on her lip. "Your turn," Eric coaxed. She sighed. "He said he was bringing a friend with him, a woman friend, and he wanted to prepare me." "Oh, that was considerate of him." "I guess." "What's the problem?" Shelley shook her head. "I don't know. He just makes me feel so..." Eric waited patiently. "So low." "Well, do you feel yourself to be low?" "Well, no, of course not." "Really? What are you getting at?" "If you truly feel good about yourself, then what he thinks of you shouldn't matter. No one should be able to make you feel any way that you don't want to feel or you don't feel yourself. If they do, it's because you already feel that way." She looked down, trying to take in the information, but Eric reached over and took her hand. "Don't worry, honey. Everything's going to be fine." "Well, I'm sure I'll survive anyway." She flashed him a smile. "Positive side is, my boys are coming home, and I can't wait for you to meet them. I wish Ricky could come down next week." Eric tugged her hair. "Well, surprise. He'll be here on Saturday." Eric surveyed Shelley's room. New scene. Eric surveyed Shelley's room. Clothes were everywhere. Apparently, Shelley had tried on every piece of clothing she owned. He shook his head. "You don't have to impress Robert or his friend. Just be yourself." "I guess you're right," she conceded. "But really, who am I?" she asked wistfully. "You are a beautiful, talented, intelligent, loving woman who still seems to suffer from low self-esteem. Love yourself, Shelley." "I do." Shelley shrugged. "Well, what do you think I should wear?" "Clothes." Spotting a white negligee on the bed, he held it up. "Oh, so you're saying I'm nothing but a sex toy?" A bit of temper crossed his face. "It was a joke. And what you are to me is everything, and what you're doing is annoying, and I refuse to play the game." He left her alone. Noon came much too swiftly for Shelley, and the plan was for Robert and his new lady friend to stay for dinner, making the transition easier on the kids. Barbecued steaks, baked potatoes, salad, rolls, iced tea, and watermelon was Shelley's menu plan. She was still working on the salad when Eric let her know a car had pulled into the driveway. Shelley entered the living room as the boys came running through the front door. Mom! Hi, Mom! They called happily. Shelley scooped them up, one in each arm, and hugged them to her. Wow, Mom, you got strong, Joey said with surprise. Wow, Joey, so have you, Shelley teased as they planted kisses all over her cheeks. Eric watched the scene with pleasure. Mark and Joey, he thought, were two of the cutest kids he'd ever seen. Of course, they did look an awful lot like Shelley. Big brown eyes and dimples were their dominant features. Their light brown hair was streaked blonde from the sun. Mark was large for his age and Joey small, making the 2-year age difference seem more like 4. Shelley put them down and rose to give Robert her hand. Hello, Shelley, you're looking well. Thank you. She looked him over as always. He was very GQ. A handsome man. He'd begun to show his 42 years with some graying at the temple, which, of course, made him look more distinguished. Shelley turned to smile at the woman by his side. I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, Eileen Shore. Shelley shook the hand of a tall, elegant woman with chin-length black hair, and bright blue eyes. Her pale skin made her look like a porcelain doll. She was dressed to the hilt in a blue sundress with matching hat and sandals. Eric could tell by the way Shelley smoothed her hands over her jeans that she felt plain and shabby by comparison. She'd taken his advice to be herself and pulled on jeans and a white blouse and tied her hair back in a low ponytail. Eric thought she was stunning. Hello, Shelley. The woman smiled sweetly at her. I've heard so much about you. I'm happy to finally meet you. Hi, Shelley said casually. It's nice to meet you too. There was a slight lull, so Eric stepped forward and introduced himself to Robert and Eileen, shaking hands and smiling warmly. Shelley watched him with pride. He was so completely self-assured, so confident, so calm. He was in a house that once belonged to the man whose hand he shook. The man who was the father of her children, yet Eric's presence was commanding and everyone felt it. Maybe, Shelley thought, it came from being the master of oneself. There is nothing to prove and therefore no ego involved, just a heart full of warmth and love enough for everyone. Eric knelt down to eye level and spoke to the boys. You must be Mark and you must be Joey. Yes, sir, they said in unison. Well, it's a great honor to meet you. Both boys offered a wide grin, and Shelley reached out and touched Mark's shoulder. You guys sure look great, all dressed up. I've never seen two handsomer boys. Eileen spoke then, her voice sweet and rhythmic like music. Okay, boys, remember what we talked about. Go straight to your room and change clothes. They grabbed their suitcases and ran up to their room. Shelley tried not to be offended by Eileen usurping her authority in her own home, but it was a slap in the face and it stung. The old feelings of low self-worth seeped in, and Eric's glance in her direction let her know that he understood. Y'all sit down and let me get you something to drink, Shelley offered curtly. When she returned, Eileen accepted a glass and turned toward Eric. Mr. Keno, I understand you're a fighter, she asked innocently enough. Shelley practically choked on her tea while Robert gave her a disdainful look. A fighter? Eric was a master, soon to be a grandmaster. His name appeared in the Black Belt Hall of Fame. Eric smiled at Eileen. No, I'm not really a fighter. I am an instructor. Shelley here is the fighter. Oh, yes, Shelley, please tell us about your tournament. I understand you did well. Eileen focused in on Shelley. Well, I won 4 bouts before I was eliminated. Oh, dear, Eileen pouted. What happened? Not that I'd understand. A woman fighting in a tournament is beyond my comprehension, but I suppose to each his own. Fire blazed in Shelley's eyes. I'm trying to understand, though, so tell me, Eileen continued sweetly. What could possibly have happened, like in the 5th fight, that was so different from the first 4? What happened, Shelley said as she rose, is I got the crap kicked out of me. She smiled sweetly. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to finish the salad. Eileen did a ladylike job of being offended. Eric excused himself to follow his lady into the kitchen. Shelley was cutting things up with a vengeance as Eric approached her. "Don't say anything," Shelley warned. "No problem," Eric said as he grabbed her knife hand and held it down. He kissed first one cheek, and then the other, and then her forehead, and then her chin. And finally she smiled. "All better?" he asked. She shrugged. "I guess I'm being a little sensitive." She turned at the sound of the boys bounding down the stairs. "Master Kino, will you show us some stuff?" they begged. "Not now," Shelley said, "but soon, okay?" Robert and Eileen joined them in the kitchen. "Where's Bree?" Robert asked with a frown. "Oh, she had to take a later flight, but she's being picked up at the airport as we speak. Actually, they should be here any minute," Shelley answered cheerfully. "Picked up? By whom?" Robert asked. "By Eric's son, Ricky." Screams of delight filled the kitchen. "Ricky's coming here? Today? All right!" "Quiet, boys," Robert snapped. "I hadn't realized that Bree was acquainted with Ricky Kino." "Oh, they're not acquainted, but they will be by the time they get back here," Shelley answered glibly. Eric broke in. I assure you that Bree is safe with my son." Shelley smiled. There was hardly anything Robert could say to that, unless he wanted to argue with Eric over how trustworthy Ricky is, and she was pretty sure Robert wouldn't want to do that. "Let's head out back," Shelley suggested. "I'll get the steaks," Eric offered. Outside, the boys headed straight to the trampoline. "Be careful," Eileen called after them. Shelley took a breath, intending to tell her that her boys were perfectly at home on the tramp, but had no chance because Robert was addressing her while Eric was in the kitchen out of sight. "Shelley, do you really think it was wise to send a stranger to pick up our daughter?" Shelley's gaze drifted to Eileen and back to Robert, who were both looking extremely self-righteous. "There is no one in the world that Bree would be safer with, and he's not a stranger. He's like a son to me." "Oh, honestly, Shelley, when are you going to grow up? You've known this boy for just a few weeks, and he's already like your son. You should give as much devotion to your own children." Shelley opened her mouth to defend herself, but was interrupted by the shriek of a beautiful young lady bursting through the screen door. "Daddy, hi!" she cried as she hugged Robert and then turned to offer her hand to Eileen. "Hi, I'm Bree." Bree hugged her mom next. "Hi, Mom, how's it going?" she whispered. "Not great," Shelley whispered back. "Where's Ricky?" "He's taking my luggage up to my room for me." "Oh, Mom, he is so sweet and so good-looking," she drooled. Shelley could hear Ricky's voice in the kitchen. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" Eric's reply was spoken in Mandarin, and Ricky spoke to his father a few minutes more, getting the gist of Shelley's situation, and then came bursting out the screen door. "Shelley, man, oh man, have I missed you," he cried as he swooped her up and spun her around, ending with a kiss directly on her mouth, making a huge smacking sound. He then turned from a blushing Shelley to introduce himself to a frowning Robert and a surprised Eileen. Mark and Joey came running, and Ricky surprised them too by scooping them up in his big arms. "So these are the two little monsters. Your mama's been telling me all about you, and she says that I should kick your butts." Bree giggled, and Shelley laughed as Ricky got on his knees and kung-fu'd the boys to the ground. He jumped up. "I win, as usual," he bragged. "Come on, guys, I just love jumping on a trampoline." They raced over, and Ricky doing a flip onto the trampoline. The boys jumped on, and they played King of the Tramp. A minute later, Ricky jumped back off the trampoline, grabbed Bree, and threw her on. "We have a prisoner, boys," he yelled as they jumped on her, tickling her. Bree screamed with delight. Ricky jumped off again, this time grabbing Shelley and throwing her on the trampoline. Eric watched a moment through the screen door before calling Ricky to help. Ricky jumped off the trampoline, did a double flip with a twist, and landed neatly on the ground. He pointed at the kids. "Don't try that at home. At least when I'm not around." He cruised inside, smiling at Robert and Eileen as he passed them. Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 18. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. And that is the end of chapter 12. Don't forget to like and comment. Ooh, I'm getting good at that.